When I woke up this morning, I was feeling pretty dangerous.
About the past and about the future.
Welcome back to Draftvice. I'm Walter, and we are back with DJ Intence is back again.
Hello, everybody. How you doing?
He didn't get to come for the live show, and I was so sad. I'm like, we got to get him in the room. We got to get some thoughts from him on the draft because I missed him a lot. Like, I miss seeing this guy all the time, man. It was so great. We used to see each other at the gym, talk football all the time. Then I started doing this weird thing, and I'm like, you know what? Get Kev on as much as I can. Now he's on. Yeah, we got him here. He's in the room. And thus, like, again, one of my favorite people back on the show. And we get to talk about the draft because that's all we're going to be talking about for like the next 2 weeks. Everybody's going to, that's it, because the only thing to talk about in football. So
it's the draft.
Who lost, who won, who got injured, who got a good trade, who won this way out. And you know what? It's always fun to talk about. We're going to do like top of our favorite classes, some of our less favorite classes. I don't know about horrible classes. There might be 1-2 really bad classes, but most of it is there were some very, very good classes, some mediocre classes you might go, what happened there? And then some classes that make you go like, oh, you guys didn't get better at all, did you?
No, you
There's like 3 of them. Or maybe 4. We'll talk about those towards the end. So, what did you think about this draft as a whole? Because like everybody heard my comments on this for the last month or so, and literally
the draft class as a whole.
Yeah, just what you think, like going into this, just like your overall top reaction to this draft, like not even this draft class, but just this draft. Like after watching it, you're like, wow, this is like, you know, you saw the names come in, you saw the lineups of the teams, like because like I felt going into this, we were gonna have a lot more diverse opinions on a lot of the teams, right? And it seems like at least a lot of people, their top 6 or 7 teams are the top 6 or 7 teams across the board, which I was a little shocked by because I felt like there was a lot of diversity of opinion as far as players in this draft class. But I think because certain players fell because of injury, and like for instance, Azeez Ojulari fell into the second round because of a knee injury. And then there's even draft classes. I think we were just starting to talk about the Giants right before I said let's start rolling and everything. The Giants, they take Kadarius Toney in the first round, but that's because they traded back from 11 overall with the Chicago Bears, picked up a few extra picks in 2022, got a first rounder in 2022.
Oh, really? There you go,
Yeah.
man. All right, Gettleman. I see you. I see you out there working.
Yeah, so like I don't mind that. And then like okay, they took Kadarius Toney, not a guy who I love, but to be honest, they also took Azeez Ojulari, a guy who I do love.
There you go.
One of my favorite players in this draft class. So I dug Azeez Ojulari. And I dug. I like the Kadarius. I don't hate Kadarius Toney. I think now the problem is I don't know if I believe that that our buddy over in New York, who's the OC, former head coach of the Dallas Cowboys, Garrett. Yes, I don't know if he's going to be using Kadarius Toney correctly. Because he's Garrett, he's Jason Garrett, and we saw him run the offense last year, and that was not fun.
You know, his offense's philosophy is meat potatoes. You know what I'm saying? First, second down, stuff the run, and the third down we're gonna pass it, and we're gonna figure out how we're gonna go from there. There's nothing creative about this offense.
No, nothing. There's nothing creative about Jason Garrett in general. He is like the Wonder Bread. Yeah, it's just like there's nothing creative about this in general.
No, not at all.
You want me to pause?
No, it's all right. Keep going. This is all right.
So again, there's nothing that I really cared much for as far as their coaching staff. Now there are some talks about the Giants maybe changing up their coaching staff a little bit.
Okay.
So maybe that leads to them utilizing Kadarius Toney. But again, it's also a very similar scheme, Bill, like similar guy to another guy you already have in Sterling Shepard.
Yeah.
Slot guy, gadget dude. Now Sterling Shepard, explosive, run after the catch dude. And both those guys I like for that same role. I don't know if I trust them to get both those guys on the field at the same time. Now Sterling Shepard hasn't always been the healthiest guy, but they did just extend him relatively recently.
Well, yeah, and they went in off season and got a whole bunch of things to help make the team better. So we're going to see what they're going to do. Yeah,
they got Kenny Golladay. They got the defensive back room is deep. Oh my God! Like if you think about it, they got Adoree Jackson. They got Logan Ryan. They have Bradbury. They had somebody else. They have Sam Beal, who they took in the what's it called? The draft that's not the draft. It's like the after draft kind of thing. It's the I don't. They didn't do one last year because of COVID, but it's
not
like
supplemental.
Yeah, the supplemental draft.
Oh,
yes.
okay.
They took Sam Beal in the supplemental draft a couple of years ago. He's still on their roster. They got rid of DeAndre Baker. He's not there anymore. But
I actually like DeAndre Baker too, and Gallman too. But
yeah,
they're both gone.
Yeah. So at this point, they have a lot of defensive backs. They even took another one. They took Aaron Robinson, slot corner at UCF, because it's kind of the perfect press man coverage slot corner. So now they're adding more man coverage to that room. Again, defensive backs wise, they're very well set. In fact, I think they have almost way too many. Even if Jabril Peppers, very good safety linebacker hybrid.
Came from your Cleveland Browns.
Yep. And previous to that, it was the Michigan guy, and he's from New Jersey. So we just keep on doubling it all up with that, all the connections to everything. And then they also took Xavier McKinney last year. So again, their defense is stacked. Now they get a real edge rusher in Azeez Ojulari.
And it's funny you bring him up because you taught me this, was that safety is not really a high priority. And even in free agency in the draft.
Yeah.
So he was like a number one pick. He was in the first round talent, but he fell the second round.
Yeah.
And the same thing happened again this year. There was no safety taken in the first round whatsoever.
Nope. The first one was actually Richie Grant, I believe, to the Atlanta Falcons. And I like Richie Grant. I did not think he'd be the first safety off the board.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you're right. Safety, it's almost a devalued position, or undervalued position.
Yeah, very, very, very undervalued.
Because, what's it called? They tend to be very good. Like, for instance, that's why a lot of people like the Browns offseason this year. They went ahead and signed John Johnson III, one of the top safeties on the market.
Yep.
And they got him for $11 million a year. So you're talking about like $6 million less than what you were paying to get Bud Dupree on your roster. And I think John Johnson III brings a lot more maybe on the back end, especially at 50% of the 50% less of the cost than what you were going to get from Bud Dupree, who's probably, I don't know, maybe like the 20th or 30th edge rusher in the NFL. Like, he's not a top 10 edge rusher, so you're paying him $16 million a year to get him in your room. I think there was, again, like, safety is a very undervalued position.
Very, very much undervalued.
But again, they get Kadarius Toney, Azeez Ojulari. They get first and fourth rounders next year. Ellerson Smith out of Northern Iowa was a very good pickup for them. In fact, again, another guy they add to their edge room that I kind of like the Giants draft sneakily if you kind of swap the Kadarius Toney pick with Azeez Ojulari. Then I feel very good about it. So that's I feel like that's always Gettleman's drafts, though. His second pick's always better than his first pick. So,
but you told me the first pick is usually a luxury pick, right? And then the second and third is where you build your team around.
Yeah. With him, well, him especially, he seems to. You can never gauge what Gettleman's going to do, and some teams, like especially in the first round, I feel like you should go for best guy available, especially at a position of value. For instance, the Browns went ahead and they took Greg Newsome. Yeah, that was a outside corner, so a high valued position. Great player at that position as well. Probably a top 3 or 4 corner in this draft class when all is said and done.
Next to J.C. Horns and Surtains and those guys.
Yeah, like outside of J.C. Horn, Caleb Farley, and Surtain, and some people had him ahead of some of those guys. So Caleb Farley, Greg Newsome, now you're getting him at 25. Again, a high value position, a position you usually have to pay like, $15, $20 million to get those guys to stay on your roster. It's an expensive position. So now you get to keep that guy. Now you get a guy in there that's at the higher value position. And then round 2, Browns go ahead and draft Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah out of Notre Dame, a guy who people were thinking of taking in the first round.
Yeah, but he had a heart issue.
So that was a big question recently. Schefter reported that, but apparently all the teams cleared him of the heart issue. So that wasn't the reason why he fell, it sounds like. It's a weird thing because even the team and the player said, like, I don't know what they're talking about necessarily when they're talking about the heart issue. Like, it was something that popped up. They do all these clearances. Now, you're right. Maybe some teams are just so squeamish with that they went, you know what, we just want to touch it. But I think what really ended up happening is he's an undersized linebacker, kind of safety hybrid, similar to Isaiah Simmons. There was a lot of talk about Isaiah Simmons, with Vance Joseph not really working out last year. Now, keep in mind, that was 1 year in the NFL.
Exactly. It takes a while.
Yeah, that was his rookie year. You never know. Next year, Isaiah Simmons, we might be talking about as a Defensive Player of the Year candidate.
Exactly.
So, but again, because of that worry, I think teams were a little bit more squeamish. Not every team has a scheme fit for him. So Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. But by the way, Browns draft was one of my favorites. I could probably go deep into that draft. I already did an episode on it, but we'll talk a little bit about it, especially if you want to talk a bit about it.
The Browns, you guys seem to hit out the park.
Yeah, the first 2 picks, Greg Newsome, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. Then they got Anthony Schwartz, the speedster out of Auburn.
Yep.
followed up with Tommy Togiai out of Ohio State and James Hudson, offensive tackle out of Cincinnati. Then they went ahead and took Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah's backup in Tony Fields.
Mm-hmm.
And then they went ahead and took a Georgia safety, LeCount, who got injured in a motorcycle crash, didn't test well at his pro day, but apparently when they looked at his GPS data, he had one of the best GPS data rankings. He had 90 percentile data rankings for his GPS. So again, and then they took Demetric Felton, one of my favorite players. So again, they were one of my favorite drafts this year. Even though I'm a Browns fan, I'm already biased, and it's like,
No.
Andrew Barry's already a very good GM, and he's only been doing it 2 years. I kind of dig it. But we're here to talk about teams that you liked and didn't like, and where you want to go. What team do you want to talk about next?
I want to go. Can I do worst to first? Is it possible to do that? Or you want to switch it around?
We could do a bad one. What was the bad one?
The bad one. I feel like I'm beating a dead horse. You Texans, bro.
Oh yes, no. They were bad.
What can I say? You messed up. Do I have to do the rant again? Do I have to go on the rant of what you did for D-Hop? Do I have to do it again to you guys?
Oh, we can't. Going into the DeAndre Hopkins trade's bad
I can
enough.
still go back, but hey, whatever. I'll come forward. You had no picks. That you were the bottom because you had nothing to work with. I'm sorry.
And their first pick that they spent was on Davis Mills, quarterback out of Stanford, who played 11 games has played 11 games. Listen, good developmental guy. Here's the thing. If I'm looking at my roster and I'm going, well, I'm going to probably have the number 1 pick overall next year, why am I taking a quarterback in the 3rd round at the top of the 3rd round? Now, we might be bashing this pick, and then next year he's like the top guy there. And it could totally be that way.
We don't know what Deshaun Watson is happening in his situation, but
that's the other thing is that's why that's why I think they drafted him was like we don't know what's happening with Deshaun. He doesn't want to play with us anyway.
Yeah.
So
we don't know.
So if we get him in the room and we have Tyrod Taylor there, and we're kind of going to be a mediocre to bad roster.
Mediocre.
Yeah,
I'm calling it bad.
Yeah, bad to very bad.
Very bad to very bad. I'm sorry.
I think they're in the running for the number 1 overall pick. So
they're going to be the walking out of the AFC South.
Yeah, so I think a good thing is I can't wait to see what the schedule. Any team that gets to play them, you get a good chance at winning. So
exactly.
Good on the people who have the Texans on their schedule.
Because you let go of J.J. Watt, he was so fed up.
Well, see that I don't think it was a mistake that they got rid of J.J. Watt because they needed the cap space, and I think that cleared out a lot of cap for them. I think the mistake with J.J. Watt was you could have probably got value for him.
True.
You could have probably renegotiated his contract, gave him like a signing bonus, converted some of that money, and got maybe a 3rd rounder. And yes, you would have maybe had to eat a little bit more money when you got rid of him. But whoever was trading for him was probably going to give you a pick to get him on their roster at a cheap value.
There you go.
Basically, you're doing a contract dump. You're eating some of the salary to get a higher pick for that player. That's what I would have done. That's what they should have done.
But they didn't.
Yes. Well, the Texans haven't hired me yet to run the
Well, the Texans, they like the Patriots guys. So good luck with that.
Yes. So Texans, Nico Collins, I didn't hate the pick of Nico Collins, but I believe they even traded up for Nico Collins too. So again, you're burning more picks. You kind of need every shot you could on that roster. I actually like Brevin Jordan, tight end out of Miami. I thought he was a very good player. He had a bad pro day, so I think he dropped lower on teams' boards.
Sometimes with pro days, I don't like pro days. I like to look at the tape. What the tape tells me, I'm going by the tape. Pro days for me is like...
And he's also a run-after-catch tight end.
Yeah.
I think the other thing is his build for tight end is not great. He is 6'2". He didn't... people were expecting him from watching the tape to blow it out of the water because he is a very athletic tight end on tape. So you're right about one thing. Pro days are a snapshot. There's a reason why teams are moving away from pro days and using GPS data from some of these teams. Now, I don't think they have it from every team, which is why pro days are still going to be utilized. But when you're taking shots on drafting guys like in the SEC or the ACC or the Big Ten, where they are using these, where they probably are using these GPS, trackers, then yes, I think where you're gaining this data information, I think you are probably better off using that because you're able to see their game speed, and it's not just like this one, hey, take a shot of this test and see what happens kind of deal. So
Can you break down GPS data for those out there who may not know what it is?
So, if you ever drove a car, right, and they track your car, or you ever you want to know where the location is on your phone? It's a little chip that goes on your phone. Well, they do this. They stick it on like your helmet or on your pads, and they're able to, they're taking shots from a satellite of how fast you're moving on the field. And now, granted, the frame rate of the GPS, so frame rate, like if you ever watch a movie, right, you hear 24 frames per second or 30 frames per second. That's usually what they're shooting movies at. Most of these GPSs are not going at that rate, which means that the data is not as refined as, say, the NFL. You ever watch NFL Next Gen Stats?
Exactly.
You're probably watching it. They probably have a higher frame rate of what their GPS data is going at, because again, the way that they're using more refined technology. They have millions of dollars to put into this, and it's all being utilized ubiquitously throughout the whole NFL. College, not every college campus has the same money to put towards this. They're not all using it in the same conferences. That would be the smart thing. If the NCAA actually wanted to do something nice and smart for everybody, they would work on trying to develop this GPS data, and it would also get more people to go to these colleges and start trying out and trying to go ahead and go into the NFL. It would bring more attention to some colleges, maybe even lesser colleges as well.
Exactly.
I think that that's something that the NCAA should look at. Some of the conferences should look at, especially if you're at a conference that has a lot of money, like, the SEC or the Big Ten or the Pac-12, where your ACC, you have a lot, if your colleges already have a lot of money coming in, you could use that and then share it with everybody else and have them pay you a licensing fee to use this technology, this proprietary technology that now they get to, send to the NFL and their players get scouted. So, listen, I think it's a very unique way that they might start doing it. It still needs to be refined a bit more. Like I said, it's not at the level that Next Gen Stats is, but it's useful, still enough useful. So that's why there's a lot of talk about some of the teams utilizing that data a lot more. What's the next team you want to talk about?
This one for me is different because it wasn't bad. I just feel like they gave away a lot of picks to get players. Was the Seahawks?
I love the Seahawks.
Pick wasn't bad at all, but I think because they didn't have enough.
Easiest
capital.
One to cover. Easiest draft class to cover. Three guys: Dwayne Eskridge, Stone Forsythe, and Trey Brown out of Oklahoma. I got to cover those guys already because it was the first draft class. I went, they had 3 guys. We're doing this one first.
Yeah, it was easy.
And I like all 3 players, so that was the good thing. I like Dwayne Eskridge. I think he might be a little underrated. I went through for what I do on the Draftvice series. For the individual teams, when I do it solo, I go ahead and I watch all the GM and head coach interviews about the players, and I already did the one on the Seahawks. And from what they were talking about with the usage for with Dwayne Eskridge and how Pete Carroll was describing it, because keep in mind their new offensive coordinators coming from the Rams tree, and again how they were utilizing jet sweep motion last year. McVay was utilizing guys, kind of getting them in motion, trying to create
space on the field.
Trying to get space on the field, trying to create issues for linebackers in their reads and their keys. So with a guy like Dwayne Eskridge, you now have Dwayne Eskridge, DK Metcalf, and Tyler Lockett. All those guys are super fast. Yep. Super quick. Dwayne Eskridge ran in the 6'3s. 6'3", 40, 6'3" something, I think it was a kind of, not 6'3", 4 threes. Sorry, I'm doing bad math there.
No.
I was thinking, I was saying, I was doing 3-cone times with 40s and stuff like that. No, he ran in the 4 threes for his 40. He's a very fast player. He went down to the Senior Bowl, showed out. One of my favorite players in this draft class. I think that he might get a little underrated. He might have some drop issues, but here and there. But I think that's fixable. I think it's correctable.
Yeah, over time.
And again, if you're getting balls thrown to you by Russell Wilson, it's different than when you're getting balls thrown to you at Western Michigan. I think he could actually handle being on the outside. I've seen him deal with press and proper press man coverage where they're utilizing jams at the line of scrimmage. CMU does it quite a bit. Central Michigan, and I think that when I saw that on tape, I said, this guy can be an outside receiver. He could be the next Terry McLaurin. Terry McLaurin was another one of those guys I think went
my fantasy hero, by the way.
Yes, dude, but again, it's a guy who went, second, third round range, same range that this guy went in. And he went and he was, but he ran the 4 threes. He was an older prospect like Dwayne Eskridge, and he wasn't utilized at his college a lot for production purposes. Dwayne Eskridge is relatively new, And what Terry McLaurin did when he was at Ohio State was he was the outside receiver, whereas they were targeting a lot of the inside receivers, the guys who were running crossers all the time. He was the one taking the top off the defense, but because everybody was getting separation, in the center of the field, it didn't really matter if Terry McLaurin's taking the top off the defense. Both those guys, I think they're all. I think Dwayne Eskridge might be this year's Terry McLaurin. That would be my guess on it.
Yeah.
Who's again, and like I said, I like Stone Forsythe. I think he actually could have went a lot higher than this, been a solid tackle for any team that took him, as like a mid-round tackle kind of prospect. And then Norwood, I think, will be a very good coverage player. I think it's again, they had to add to that room. They lost Shaq Griffin to Jacksonville.
Yep.
They did sign the San Francisco corner, not Emmanuel Mosley, the other Akilo Witherspoon. So they signed him in free agency to a 1-year, $4 million deal. They still have Trey Flowers. They still have DJ Reed, who they actually said DJ Reed was one of the reasons why they thought about Trey Brown, because they're like, well, we saw a smaller guy deal with that on the outside. We don't mind having smaller guys on the outside, and if we can't stick them on the outside, we could stick them in the slot. But now we have a good variety of like 4 guys deep that we kind of really like.
Yeah, you know how the Seahawks do it.
Yeah.
And then after that, I think everybody really nailed their draft. There was no really draft that was like, oh, this was terrible.
No, there was no terrible ones. There were some very good ones, right? Like,
after that, everybody else really did their job.
Like, I like the Jets draft, right?
Yes.
Elijah Vera, and I had issues with the trade up. I didn't care much for trading up for Elijah Vera Tucker.
But if you want your guy, you're going to go get it.
Yeah, I get that aspect of it, especially if you sat there and said, you know what, we think that Elijah Vera Tucker is of the quality of Zach Martin and Quentin Nelson, that he's going to bring an element to your offensive line that you just don't have to worry about. And he's probably close to that level good, at least coming out as far as a prospect goes. He did play tackle last year. He's previously played guard. He'll probably line up on the left side of the line. So now you got him and Becton on the left side of the line. Oh, my gosh. Now you just kind of got to figure out what you're doing for your center, right? Center will probably be Connor McGovern. Right guard, I don't know who's going to be right guard.
It's going to be a plug-and-play guy.
Maybe. This is why I had a problem with how they drafted a little bit. Not really a lot, because when you think, I like all 4. I like the top 5 picks for the Jets, right?
Yes.
Zach Wilson, I think, is a solid quarterback. I'm excited to see what he does at the NFL level.
The Zach Wilson kid, man. I saw you at BYU play, and you have the talent. The arm talent is not. It's not like he's not there. You can clearly see it.
Yes.
Does it transition to NFL? I've seen guys with arm talent. I've seen the Jeff George. I've seen those guys. Kyle Bowlers. I've seen those guys. Will it transition to the NFL? Only time will tell.
Well, here's the thing with Zach Wilson, right? I will say the offense that he ran at BYU is very similar probably to what Mike LaFleur is bringing over from the 49ers. They ran a lot of outside zone.
Yeah, you go. Talk your ish, Joe.
I think my one major issue with Zach Wilson is frame and build and how he invites contact when he tries to break the pocket. He is very good at the thing that I think they really liked about him. And I have not done the Jets episode yet, but I have actually watched the interviews with Saleh and Joe Douglas. And one of the things they really liked about Zach Wilson was his ability to create off a script. When the game goes kind of awry, he can make everything rework again, right?
So it's like a Russell Wilson type of magic he does?
I would say
closer
to the Mahomes category than what Russell Wilson does. More close to like what Baker Mayfield does off script. More close to what... In fact, I think that was maybe the better comp for him, was maybe a combination of Baker Mayfield and Johnny Manziel. The Baker Mayfield element being a little bit taller than those guys too, but he has like the Baker Mayfield... games going off script, I'm going to make something out of this play kind of deal. I think he's a little bit more athletic than Baker Mayfield. I do think he has that. That's why I said with a little bit of Johnny Manziel to him. Also in the way he runs, in the way that he will go ahead and invite contact. And the problem is when you're playing at BYU, that's not a big deal because you're running over guys and taking contact from guys that are not that big. At the NFL level, that's going to be a bit more of a headache. And again, we're talking about guys who are, again, BYU is like the guys that BYU were playing this year were not guys that he would be playing even like if he was playing in the SEC.
Yeah.
We're talking about NFL players he's going to be running into, guys who are like,
and they're going to take his head off.
Well, imagine he runs into Zaven Collins like that. He's gonna get 270 pounds of Zaven Collins in your face is not fun.
No.
So I like Zach Wilson. I like the way he plays. I like his ball placement, his pocket presence. I think he has the best pocket mobility and pocket presence in this draft class.
Well,
so those things I really like.
Okay. Well, I want to see what his future holds, and he probably gonna have to hit the weight room and get a little more size on him to take the beating.
Well, yeah, that's the issue is the size. He's a little slight. Now, granted, size itself does not make you an injury risk. He has to make sure he does not do what he did in college, where he runs into guys thinking he can bulldoze a linebacker, thinking he's Josh Allen,
and he will not.
Because Josh Allen's got 20 or 30 pounds on him, and also a couple of inches as well. Yeah. So yeah, he can't do what Josh Allen was doing his first year, where he's just running into dudes
and putting the stiff arm out. So
now I think they surround him with a lot of good weapons.
Yes, they did.
So
they did.
That's where the second half of this draft class goes kind of nice, right? They went ahead. They took Elijah Vera Tucker. They took Elijah Moore. They cornered the market on the Elijahs. All different spellings too. Elijah Vera Tucker has the A. Elijah Moore, one of my favorite players, has it with an E.
See, and it's funny because Walt and I went in a group chat, and I said, if they can get that kid, the Bears took, and put him on the old line, because I like
Kevin Jenkins. Yes, I did.
If they would have gotten him at the right guard position, I didn't care who you would have draft as your slot guy, but you needed weapons for the kid. Because
you needed speed. And what Elijah Moore brings a level of speed that nobody else on the Jets have.
No.
Denzel Mims tested fast. I'm not quite sure his game tape is that fast.
No, it wasn't fast at all. And you have a lot of possession guys on the roster for the Jets. So you needed somebody to blow the top off.
Yeah, this is Elijah Moore's got good speed. And, again, good run after the catch ability, good contested catch ability, good hands. And he's going to be I think he is, somewhere in that Deebo Samuel to Brandon Cooks combination. Like if you took pieces of their ability, the Brandon Cooks ability to take the top off the defense, the Deebo Samuel run after catch ability, you take those aspects to him. I liked him a lot as a player. I think they got a steal at 34. So again, I like Elijah Moore a lot. And then
I like that kid though for the Bears.
Oh no, I guess, but that was the issue with trading up from 23. They could have gotten Tevin Jenkins and Wyatt Davis, and think about it with 66, right? So they didn't have to trade up; they could have kept 23, right? At 23, you could have taken Tevin Jenkins. At 34, you could have taken Elijah Moore. At 66, you could have taken Wyatt Davis. Or, by the way, the pick that the Vikings took Wyatt Davis with was the pick that they got from the second third-round pick that they got from the Jets. So you could have taken Wyatt Davis to be your other guard. You could have taken, Quinn Miners out of Whitewater. So again, that was the guy who blew up the Senior Bowl, who I think is going to be a very good zone blocking center. They could have maybe moved McGovern over to guard. They had a lot of options at, again, getting rid of those 2 third-rounders. Now, one of those third-rounders was a pick swap with their 4th-rounder from the Vikings. But that 66th pick, man, that could have been a real player. And I think that was a very big deal for me. That's why I get, and believe me, I totally buy it. I understand the argument. And listen, if somebody, I'm just saying that's not what I would have done. I totally get Joe Douglas doing it, trading up for Elijah Vera Tucker. It might work out better than I could ever imagine. Having that level of an offensive line. I just think I would rather have the multiple shots of Tevin Jenkins and Wyatt Davis, and if you want Creed Humphrey or Quentin Miners, you had those extra picks to spend on it. But I totally
you let the
get
draft come towards you. You don't go out and reach it. But like I told him earlier, like if you really want that guy, you're gonna go up and get him. So they went and got him. I don't blame. It wasn't bad for me because I liked him I'm like his tape is not that bad.
No, he wasn't. He was not bad. Oh, no, listen, Elijah Vera Tucker is a very good player. And Joe Douglas said that was a top 10 player on their board. So, and when they made the decision that if he fell out of the top 10, they'd go get him. If a guy who's in their top 10 was available, they would trade up from 23 to go get a top 10 guy on their board. He was one of those guys. They went up, they grabbed him. And you know what? Fine. You know what? If that's the deal you made and that's what you wanted to do, you can figure out right guard. Maybe they sign Trey Turner in free agency because he's still available. Maybe they like what they have on the roster with who they drafted the last couple of years and see maybe what they have at right guard. Or maybe they move Elijah. I would almost rather have Elijah Vera Tucker, even though he's played primarily on the left side. I would rather move him to the right side because right guard is a more important position typically for teams than left guard. Because usually that is the part where that's usually if you have a right-handed quarterback, right guard is one of the more important positions on the offensive line because that is where your vision is. You want your guard that's in front of you, that's on your right side, to be giving you that ability to throw over the offensive line. and you want your left tackle and you want your right guard to be some of your better players. So that's why usually your best guard is your right guard and your best tackle is your left tackle. The blind side covers you on one side, and then you want to be able to see over the offensive line down on this side. So
we'll see. And then, like I said, the Jets, I feel like I'm skipping around, but whatever. The Jets, to me, was like, all right, you know what? I'm actually going to finally see what Joe Douglas is about.
Yeah.
Because you know who we had before as our head coach? I don't need to say anymore. Good riddance to that guy.
Well, like I said, I like Robert Saleh. I think he's really good. I like the coaching staff he's brought in. I like that he brought LaFleur. He brought the old offensive line coach from the 49ers. I definitely think, like, if you're taking LeVera Tucker at 14, he's not a bust at least.
No,
like, there's a
not.
risk that guys that you take later on are going to be more likely to bust. I like Michael Carter, who they took in the 4th round. Think about it. Guys who, think of all the other
running back, right?
Yeah, it was a running back.
He was the guy that played with the other running back in North Carolina. They just ran.
Javonte Williams.
They ran. Their boys can run.
Yeah.
From North Carolina. I'm like, woo. Because I think they had a tape when they had like 200 yards apiece.
Yeah, he was good. He's the
same
better
game,
pass
right?
catcher too. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm like, woo. All right, okay. I see what you guys doing as the Jets. You're making it basically San Fran West, East Coast. So I see what you're doing. So I'm gonna have a good eye on what the Jets are gonna have the future holds, because it seems like a whole culture shift from the Gates onto the Robert Saleh and LaFleur era. So we're gonna see.
And I like what they did with Sherwood and Hamza Nasruddin, and I think they're going to be playing them closer to linebacker, like a linebacker safety hybrid kind of deal. Again, the interview with Saleh, he even hinted at that. He called them linebackers, and he made a very good point where the distinction between box safety and linebacker is not a lot. So I kind of like what I got from the interviews with him.
I like Robert Saleh too as a head coach for the Jets. I think it was about time.
And then the second Michael Carter they drafted, the cornerback from Duke, they might be playing him more at free safety, was what I got from their
But
interview.
then they already have, oh my gosh.
Well, he's more of a backup. Like,
they
have Marcus May.
Yeah. And Marcus May really showed out. I didn't really, when it was him and Jamal Adams in the backfield, it was mostly Jamal Adams who did the dirty work. And Marcus May was like the quiet eraser. But when they let Adams go, you saw Marcus May really shine out. I said, okay, this guy is a stud. Because they got him at the second pick, right? Second round pick, right? Yeah. So,
no, he's turned into a great player for them. They also have Ashton Davis, who they drafted last year. So, again, they have a lot of guys who I think they're looking for versatility. Like, maybe they want to play Michael Carter as kind of a quasi, like, free safety, but also slot corner hybrid kind of deal. So I think they have a plan for how they want to utilize these guys.
Is it me, or does it seem like the NFL is starting to get into, like, the only way you can play in the league, you got to be multifaceted? I feel like a lot of these players are multifaceted. Like, for example, the New England way. New England Patriots is the one who gave the blueprint of, like, if you look at what the Patriots do, a lot of their edge rushers either have their hands up on the dirt. And they can do both really, really well. So
since we're on the Patriots, right? Because you know what? We both wanted to talk about their draft class. Let's bring them up because
you know what?
I'm
sick. Can I go here?
Yes.
Can I go off now?
Yes, go off.
Why are you guys letting Bill Belichick do this? Every year. He does it every year. Stop letting him do this. I'm sorry, I'm yelling on the mic. Stop it. You let him get Mac Jones. Why?
He got Mac Jones.
You gonna get Bartmore too? Are you kidding me? Do you know what it's going to be on that line to face that squad? Do you realize what is going to happen to people with a motivated New England Patriots squad that everyone written off with the all-season acquirements, what they have in the draft? Come on.
Barmore and Perkins, and if there's somebody who's going to make Ronnie Perkins a good player, it's
what's going to happen.
Belichick.
You know what's going to happen with the Patriots. You know what's going to happen.
They're going to be utilizing Ronnie Perkins and dropping, and they'll go ahead and rush him. And, again, a guy who's got a build that's a little awkward. This was a perfect – look, Ronnie Perkins and Barmore going to the Patriots, it should have been written in stone before the draft. Like, everybody was saying that Barmore was going in the top 15, top 20, and he ends up dropping out of the first round, goes to the Patriots. Couldn't have been a better situation for our buddy Barmore.
Do you realize what Bill Belichick is going to be talking in Bartmore's ear every day? To motivate this
second round, kid.
To motivate this guy to wreak havoc on the field.
32 teams passed up on you. You better make them regret it.
He's not even going to say that. He's like, yeah, your second round pick and walk off. And this kid's going to be fuming on the field. So imagine what you're going to have with this squad. That's why that game against the Bucs, I'm telling you right now, mark my word, somebody's scoring 40. Somebody scoring 40 in that game. It could be the Bucks. It could be the Pack. Somebody's going to score 40 and someone's going to get hurt. They're going to take it real personal between Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. I'm telling you.
Now, if there's one issue I have with this draft, right, it is they did not take a wide receiver until the 7th round in Trey Nixon out of UCF.
Bill. He's gonna figure out what to do with this guy. That might be the next slack guy, Julian Edelman. We don't know.
I don't know. I think there was some. Now they'll probably know what they'll probably do is trade a 2nd-round pick next year for Julio Jones.
Listen to me, goddamn it. Listen to me. Do not let Bill get what he wants.
Don't do it.
Don't do it. Atlanta, don't do it.
He's going to clear all their cap out.
Atlanta, don't do it. Don't let Bill call you up, butter you up, and say, listen, I'll give you a second and this guy.
Atlanta, you want to...
You want because, Julio doesn't want to be there anymore. And we can surely use him, so let's just make it work.
Atlanta, you didn't get a lot of corners this year, right? We got a corner who's a little bit older but might fit your scheme, and Stephon Gilmore. We got J.C. Jackson on our roster.
You know that he's going to do that.
Oh, yeah.
Gilmore, I'm surprised that Gilmore's still on the roster right now, to be honest. I'm sorry.
Well, they're saving him for the Julio Jones trade. That's what they're going to do, though. Listen, Atlanta, listen, what we'll do is we'll get a little bit of the cap for you, right? We'll take a little bit more off the top. You could pay him $5 million this year. We get Julio, right? And we give you maybe a 2nd or 3rd rounder next year down the line. And then we get our star receiver to give to our buddy Mac Jones. And while Mac Jones is sitting, we get to pair up 2 former NFC South champions in they almost could have been champions. They could have been Super Bowl champions, but we beat the Falcons, and the Denver Broncos beat the Panthers. But now we will unite Cam Newton with Julio Jones and go to the playoffs. And we'll have Mac Jones sitting behind, learning from the Jones and the Cam Newtons. I think we've cracked the code. Bill Belichick, because he likes those older dudes, right? And he has no problem trading away 2nd and 3rd round picks because he knows he'll recoup them eventually.
Exactly. It's funny because in the group chat, shout out DJ Graham, and he's like, "Are you like a closet Belichick fan?" I said, "No. I think for me, over time,
you respect him.
I respect this guy. He's a genius, and watching the Table 2 Bills, because Bill Parcells and Bill Belichick, we got to learn the history about those two guys. Watching that dynamic work, I said, man, I like this guy even more. Because we forget that Bill Belichick helped the Giants win those Super Bowls.
Yeah, listen.
You forget about that. You know that, right?
Yeah.
I know your history.
Yeah, listen, I think that people underrate Bill Belichick, even as he is called the greatest head coach of all time. Like, it's such a weird thing. And people are like, oh, he's done. Oh, it was always Tom Brady. And I think he's looking at it. He's like, listen, we have all this extra money. We're going to throw it like we're going to be throwing a badass party.
Watch. I'm telling you.
Listen,
that AFC East, because that AFC East might look like the AFC North, how it is right now. Like, somebody in that division is going to be going like 7-9, 8-9. You know what? It's 8-9, right?
Yeah, 8-9.
9
and 8, 8-9.
Or 7-10 or something like that. And they're going to be like a strong out. So don't sleep on what's going to happen in that whole division. I think personally with my Jets, but hey, whatever.
I think the Jets have one more year of growing. I think they will probably be an 8-9 team.
Yeah, they're gonna. I think the Jets are the bottom, but don't pencil them in like, oh, it's the easy win, because I don't think so.
No, it's not.
Not with Salah and that whole crew over there.
And Joe Douglas running things down there.
Finally.
Well, also they don't have corners. Like, that was the one issue I have with the Jets, right? They didn't draft a corner. They didn't sign any corners. They said, what are corners? They have a bunch of safeties. They drafted like Michael Carter. They drafted a couple of random corners on day 3. But like, they really didn't make that a priority, which was one of the issues I had with the Jets draft. Because again, like, it wasn't like there weren't any corners that maybe would have fit that scheme. Like, Fetu Melifonwu went in the 3rd round, like late 3rd round. Paulson Adebo went in the 3rd round. Benjamin St. Juste, I think, went like 2nd, 3rd round area. So again, there was a lot of corners that they could have went after that I think would have fit their scheme.
Too is the Jets they don't have really an edge rusher, like a guy to say go get that guy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that was a weird thing.
That's always been their history. They never really had a guy to say you go get him.
I thought they were going to target edge rusher in this draft class,
but they didn't.
No, not. I don't even know if did they take one or not. I got to check.
No, they didn't take one at all.
So yeah, again, the Jets
It might be a scheme thing. They might get around to get that guy open, but we don't know yet.
Well, again, they signed guys in free agency. They got Vinny Curry, Carl Lawson. They have Quinnen Williams. They signed Sheldon Rankin. So I think they put a lot of emphasis on getting D linemen in there. And maybe they'll find some guys. Maybe they'll sign like Melvin Ingram or some other cheap dudes that might be out there.
Ingram's still floating out there for
Melvin
real?
Ingram is still out there, I know.
Really? From the Chargers?
Yeah.
Wow. And no one signed him yet?
I'm sure the Colts are checking in, but the Colts also just drafted Kwity Paye, so I think they're more inclined to sign an offensive. Yes,
I liked
Kwity Paye a lot.
He's another guy that to me, I don't know if you know his backstory, but he's a scary guy too.
He used to play running back, and then all of a sudden he's playing edge rusher, and he's built like a bowling ball of knives.
Yeah, and then with his history with his mom, and coming from Liberia, man, that's a sad story with him. But he's a guy I'm like, he's motivated.
He's good too. Like, he's very.
Don't let the tape fool you what Michigan did, because Michigan, hardball.
Again, but that's another guy who if I was the Jets, I would have been looking at. But you know what? I get what they wanted to do here. They wanted to build around their quarterback, give him everything to succeed.
Yes.
And I think that was a mistake they made with Sam Darnold the first time. And they have 2 firsts and 2 seconds next year. So when they get an idea what their offense is, they'll look at their team. They'll go, okay, next year's the defensive build.
Okay.
And I think that's their plan. I think they have an idea of what they want to do. Once they have an idea of, okay, maybe we need to still figure out right guard next year or this year. Maybe they'll trade for guard. There's still teams that have, like, I know there's teams out there that have a lot of offensive line depth that might be willing to trade, that maybe are looking to acquire defensive line talent or corner talent or safety talent. So again, there's teams out there that I think they might be able to trade with. Let's go to another team. We talked plenty about the Jets and the Patriots.
Jets. I'm sorry, I had to go there. I think another team that did well. We did your Browns.
Yes, they did very well.
The Vikings, low key to me.
I like the Vikings.
Low key, they had like you hit out the park. You addressed your needs. You know what I'm saying? Wasn't like the home run, but you can remember last year they had a lot of holes.
They did. Well, and so here's the thing. I thought they were really going to address edge rusher early. And I think if Kwity Paye didn't go to the Colts, because remember, they traded back. They got those extra third-rounders.
Exactly.
I think that was a big deal for them. They traded back. They move all the way to the back of the first round. And then Kwity Paye goes like 2 spots before they draft. I think Jalen Phillips goes 18 overall. So they're sitting there going like, well, the top 2 edge rushers are off the board. I guess they didn't really like Jason Owe. I thought Jason Owe would have been a good fit for them as well. But again, so they didn't take an edge rusher. Instead, they took Christian Darrisaw out of Virginia Tech, a guy who they might have been thinking of taking at 14 anyway. So they get him. They take Kellen Mond at 66 overall, top of the 3rd round, which I thought was a little weird. I don't mind it because I think they only have 2 more years of Kirk Cousins under contract. And listen, if this guy develops...
Kid for Kirk, baby.
Listen, if this guy develops, you let Kirk walk in free agency.
Like he always does, and he gets paid.
And yeah, he'll go get paid by somebody else. You'll recoup a comp pick from him. You now have a cheaper quarterback to deal with if Kellen Mond develops, and I think Kellen Mond can develop. And then the rest of their draft was kind of interesting. They took a lot of shots, right? Chaz Surratt out of North Carolina, kind of a more of a coverage linebacker kind of guy. Wyatt Davis, if they take Wyatt Davis where they took Kellen Mond, I would have been fine. So again, they get a right guard to pair up with their left tackle. They have Ezra Cleveland, who they drafted last year, who they played at left guard. He played well at left guard. They have Brian O'Neill, who they drafted 2 years ago or 3 years ago. He's playing right tackle for them. They'll probably extend Brian O'Neill eventually. So they're fixing their offensive line. The only issue they really have on offensive line now, as far as going forward, is center. I'm not a huge fan of Garrett Bradbury. I think he has that issue of he's not a good pass blocking center. Just listen, run outside zone with them all the time, and you'll be fine. But if you have to actually drop back and pass, well, at least now you have other guys on your offensive line who could pass block. But I do think they have to fix that issue. That's why I think Quentin Miners should have been on their list as well, because I think he would be a better version of Garrett Bradbury.
But to be the Vikings on the outside never had the issue, because you already had Justin Jefferson. That was a steal for me.
No, wide receiver, they
don't need anybody for wide receiver.
I mean, they still should have maybe addressed it. They didn't take a wide receiver until round 5 with Emir Smith-Marset. I think they could have went earlier on that, mainly. But again, I don't hate any of the picks they took in the 3rd round, because they had 4 third-round picks. One I didn't like. I didn't like Patrick Jones out of Pittsburgh. I was not a huge fan of Patrick Jones coming up. I don't think he's a bad pick for them, but I wasn't a huge fan of the pick. So, but again, I think they'll be fine. I think their first 5 picks were totally reasonable picks.
Yep.
They wanted to adjust edge. Janarius Robinson out of Florida State, round 4. I thought that was a very good pick. So they take 2 shots on edge rushers in the mid rounds to some pair up with Danielle Hunter, with Janarius Robinson and Patrick Jones. I think that's fine. They also took Jalen Twyman like in round 6. I'm not overly eager about him. But overall, I think they took a lot of shots. Again, the extra 3rd and 4th round picks I think very much helped them.
Yes, it does.
The Kellen Mond thing, I did think it was funny that RG3 went on TV, was doing an interview and was like, listen, he actually was like giving his kind of talking down on Kirk Cousins. Like, hey, he's not liking this. Now, of course, he doesn't like this. He wants to cash his paychecks. He doesn't. And I kind of felt like it was a little bit of salt from a former teammate. You're just mad he took your job because no matter what,
he performed better than you.
Yeah, Kirk Cousins is gonna have a job after the Vikings.
Yeah.
If he doesn't re-sign with the Vikings, he's going somewhere else and getting a job.
Exactly.
He might not get $40 million a year again, or maybe he will, but he's gonna have a job.
I call Kirk Cousins, you are the new Sam Bradford. Wherever
better
you go,
than Bradford though. He doesn't have any injury concerns with Bradford. But yes.
Hear me out. I'm not disrespecting when I call you like Sam Bradford, like you are walking what's the word? Tinder sticks. No. I'm saying that wherever you go, you get paid. Because Sam Bradford, wherever you went, he got paid.
One of the high. Yes, he made so much money in the NFL. Chase Daniels too. I don't know how that guy made money.
So
he's never played a snap either. He just makes money as a backup,
and he gets paid. So there's nothing wrong when I say that Kirk Cousins, you're gonna get paid for like the next 5-10 years.
Yeah. So, I listen. He'll go somewhere else and he'll make money somewhere else and. That I don't think he is worried about Kellen Mond.
No.
Overall, again, the Vikings, I agree with you. I think the Vikings had a very solid draft. They also had some weird off the field issue with their 1st round pick last year, Jeff Gladney. So they might be short a corner. I know they didn't pick up Mike Hughes's 5th year option. So they maybe they should have addressed corner a little bit sooner. But I don't hate what they did on their draft. I like a lot of the guys they picked. So it didn't feel like they were reaching.
The next one for me, are we going to the next one?
Yeah.
Okay, the next one for me, it's a praise and celebration. It's a praise and celebration. Chicago Bears.
Oh, yes. I can't believe it took us this long to get to the Bears.
Thank you, Lord.
Yes.
You finally seen the lights. It's about time.
They took a very accurate, good, mobile quarterback in Justin Fields. This is the best quarterback they've had in 30 years.
Hey. You guys should be doing cartwheels right about now.
Allen Robinson must be happy. He's wait, somebody who could accurately throw a football?
Yes.
Dear God.
Yes.
Oh, my God. He's not going to have that Nick Foles problem.
Mike Wilbon went on Twitter. It was so much joy and jubilation. Wilbon was – I felt so happy for him. Chicago, every year, it just seems like they're just one guy away. And you finally got it now.
Yeah.
And then you went back and got the tackle who I loved.
Yes, Tevin Jenkins.
So you got he, to me, is epitomized what Chicago's all about. He's going to be the guy that you guys are going to love because he's nasty. He's really barnyard, nasty, filthy, don't touch my guy. I love him.
I love him too. Now, here's my problem, though. They cut Charles Leno this week. So the left tackle. So when I was walking into this after the draft, I went, oh, this is great. They have him and Jermaine Ifedi, so if one of them doesn't work out, they have one of them to be the backup, and they still have Charles Leno, who's a solid left tackle. Well, they cut Leno, and they said, Tevin Jenkins, you're playing left tackle.
Woo!
Which is weird because if you ever watched Jenkins' tape...
He was on the right side, right?
Yeah, he played majority right tackle. I think he took about 20% of his snaps were at left tackle. At different points, I think they moved him over to left tackle at certain...
Probably just to help out.
Well, I think some of it might be certain years, somebody gets injured, you swap him over to the left side or whatever. So he's played some snaps at left tackle, but his general side that he has played
is the right side.
Is right side, right tackle, which I thought it was going to be a camp battle between him and Jermaine Ifedi to be the right tackle.
Chicago, you disappointed me again.
Yeah, that worries me a bit. Now, listen, there's a lot of tackles that are on the market. So there's still Dennis Kelly out there. There's still Russell Okung out there.
What? He's still out there too?
He's still out there. Now, there are other teams that are interested in tackles too. The Colts are interested in tackles. I think they've called Dennis Kelly and Charles Leno. Keep in mind the Bears already cut Bobby Massey, their right tackle, because they were like, well, we have Jermaine Ifedi. We felt like Ifedi played better than Bobby Massey, so we'll draft a guy and we'll also keep, we'll keep Ifedi on. A little risky of a move, I think, but okay. So they could still address it. There's still guys out there. There's still time. They could always bring back one of those former tackles of theirs, but I don't think they plan on bringing back Leno. I think Leno's going to probably sign with the Colts, and I would guess Dennis Kelly or Massey would be the other one to sign. And then Okung is still out there somewhere doing something. I don't know what he's been.
How old is he now?
He's got to be getting in. He's got to be in his 30s at this point.
He's getting long in the tooth, right?
Yeah, but also tackle, you can be in your 30s and play pretty solid. There's also Jason Peters is almost 40, and he was at least kind of playing the last couple of years. So, Jason Peters is still out there. They could always go ahead and pull him in to play. Like, I'd be a backup tackle for them. There's options. There's still options out there. But like you said, the top two guys that they took.
I loved it.
I loved it, and they made sure they got them right. Yeah. Justin Fields, Tevin Jenkins, trade up for both. They took Larry Barome from Missouri in the 5th round, so maybe they're looking at him to be their swing tackle. I kind of like the Khalil Herbert out of Virginia Tech pick. I think he's got a little bit of, he's like a smaller Kareem Hunt kind of deal to him. I don't mind it. I kind of like good contact balance. Not a big back, but I think he'll be solid for them. Daz Newsome, again, there was a lot of talk up until now. I think there's a lot of talk they might trade Anthony Miller, and I think that's kind of gone away a bit now that they got now that they have Justin Fields. I think they signed Marquise Goodwin in free agency.
Ooh, that's nice.
There was the guy that they drafted. I keep forgetting his name in the 5th round last year, 4th round last year. They took a wide receiver who also has a lot of speed to him. They got a lot of track stars on that team, and they just signed Amir Byrd, formerly of the Patriots and of the Arizona Cardinals and a few other teams, but he's another guy with speed. So they're looking to get a lot of speed guys on that roster, it looks like. Between Goodwin, Amir Byrd. Newsome's not a speed guy. I think it's weird. He tested not that great, but he did look like kind of a more he was on the same team as
Carter?
No, I think it was Carter. He was on the same team as.
He's from North Carolina, right?
Yeah, Michael Carter and Javonte Williams. I was thinking the other wide receiver who went earlier, who went to the Washington football team, who also I think had a very good draft. So we'll talk about them in a minute or two.
We can get to them too.
Diami Brown is the other guy. So if you're watching Diami Brown, you might have also saw Daz Newsome. He was on a lot of the tape, and I kind of like what Daz Newsome did. He's not going to be a star, but I think he's a solid role player, solid slot guy. He's
receiver 3, 4. Put him work.
Yeah, so if they do still end up trading Anthony Miller down the line, it looks like we'll see in camp. I think we're going to see a lot of movement this year in camp. Last year we didn't see any movement in camp because you didn't have the
OTAs.
Well, you didn't have OTAs. It was a lot harder to trade guys. You also didn't have the opportunity of seeing guys in the preseason. I think they are going to have a preseason this year, right?
Yeah.
With that,
is it 2-game preseason or 3?
I think it's only 2, but I could be entirely wrong on that because that's one of those things that I will not know until I don't pay attention as much to the preseason. It's just more to see, how are the new guys looking like when they get them out there on the field.
Because I believe when they added the 1 game, they took off 2 games for preseason. So I think it might be only 2 games this year for preseason. So we'll find out.
Yeah,
because the owners are like, hey, we need one more preseason game to compensate.
Yeah, they want to be able to. Well, they want to be able to sell tickets and make money off of it.
So that goes.
Also, 2 other guys that they talk about, they were their later picks. Thomas Graham out of Oregon. I think that was actually a good pickup by them. They could have taken him way earlier. Good, solid outside corner. He probably could have went way earlier than this. I kind of dug his tape a little bit. They did get rid of Kyle Fuller, so they kind of.
Oh man, that one hurts.
I guess they really do like Jalen Smith, who is it Jalen Samuels, the corner that they drafted last year in the 2nd round. He actually performed pretty well for them. And then Kyrie's Tonga at BYU, I actually didn't mind either as a late round D-line pick. Let's talk Washington because since we're on the subject of draft classes, I kind of liked Washington's draft class kind of sneakily.
Washington is sneakily scary too as well.
Because, depending on who you are, you might not be a huge fan of Jamin Davis in the 1st round. But if Ron Rivera likes you at linebacker, I think that's a good sign.
Sorry to cut you off.
Yes.
Ron Rivera took a guy in the 7th round, Cameron Cole, and became a stud for that defense.
Yes.
So when Ron likes you, let Ron do it. Because I was going to ask you, who do you think is going to be this year's like late pick steal? We're going to ask at the end, and you let me know, because I didn't see this kid coming out of nowhere, Cameron Curl, the way how he did. And you look at this guy's tape. This kid, I'm sorry, Landon Collins. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Count your blessings. Bye-bye.
Well, I think Landon Collins got one more year on his deal.
Bye-bye.
Then they'll get rid of him eventually.
Bye-bye, Landon Collins. Listen, just come back home. Come back home.
Go back to the Giants.
Go back.
I think they'll trade him to somewhere before they let him go back to the Giants.
Bye-bye. Because he took your spot, and he showed out. He showed out.
Yeah, so they find ways of, like, when it comes to defense, especially because you have Jack Del Rio and Ron Rivera there, they know linebackers very well, and they know athletic linebackers very well. Remember, Luke Kuechly, Thomas Davis, they know those guys very well.
Do.
Shaq Thompson they had as well. They had very good linebackers when they were in Carolina.
Throughout their history, the two of them. So, and remember, Ron was a linebacker himself.
Yeah, both of them were. So that's why Jamin Davis, 4.4s. By the way, his best tape came against Kyle Pitts, the guy who went number 4 overall in this draft class. He was one of the 2 guys to shut him down. Yeah, we'll talk a little bit about Atlanta. He was one of the 2 guys to shut him down. I think they were very eager to get him in the building. To get a very athletic linebacker behind their very stout front 4 or front 7. Now they have a stout front 7. I think that was the idea.
Yeah.
Had a very good year. I think some people are a little bit worried about, like, why hadn't he played until this point? Why was this kind of one-year wonder? But I don't mind it. Again, I think linebacker is a position that is sometimes hard to scout. So some people, if they could scout it well, I'm going to trust their opinion on it.
I like this kid because, like you said, he was like a silent kind of guy.
He came out of nowhere. Like, people didn't know about him, and then he blew up his pro day, and then there was like, he's going in the first round. And ran in the 4.4s, very athetic. Again, he has that ability to be that difference maker at linebacker, I think, for them. So I kind of like the pickup for them. He, especially if you're playing guys who are, you need to be your front 4 are going to keep the guys off of you, right? Because you have Matt Ioannidis and John Allen and Hand and Chase Young and Montez Sweat and
those 2 right there, Montez Sweat and Chase Young. My God,
you got a deep defensive line rotation that is very good, and now you just wanted that one linebacker who can be very good in coverage, but also very good in run support.
His nose in there.
Yeah, so I think they dig what he can do. But I think what really sold me on their draft class was day 2. Samuel Cosme out of Texas, Benjamin St-Juste out of Minnesota, Diami Brown, all 3 of those guys I really liked. I'm interested to see how they want to use Benjamin St-Juste, because I think they might start playing a lot more press man coverage. From what I've seen, they signed William Jackson III in free agency. They bring in Benjamin St-Juste. If they're not playing more press man coverage, I'd be a little worried. Well, not with Benjamin St-Juste, but more with William Jackson, because that's exactly what he did well. And I think you can kind of do a lot with Benjamin St-Juste if you coach him up in that regard to get him to be a press man corner. They still, I think, have Fuller and Moreau on that roster. They still have a solid cornerback room. Diami Brown, to add Diami Brown already to a receiving room of Curtis Samuel and Terry McLaurin. People were talking about him being a top 50 pick, and they got
Curtis Samuel's over there now too?
Yes. So now you have Diami Brown on one side of the field. He could be your split end. Now you have Curtis Samuel, Terry McLaurin. It's no longer key in on Terry McLaurin week.
Good luck.
Terry McLaurin is going to get freed up a little bit more.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is.
This is great. I love it for Terry.
They still have that tight end over there too. So, wow.
Logan Thomas, yes.
Yeah. So who is it? Is their starting quarterback going to be Fitzpatrick and the other kid? What was the kid name?
I think it's going to be I think they're going to start with Fitzpatrick, and then Taylor Heineke, they'll give him a couple of shots to do it. And I think they would have looked at quarterback if one of those day 2 guys fell a little bit. They went right off the board. Like Davis Mills, Kellen Mond, and Kyle Trask all went like in 4 picks of each other.
Kyle Trask ended on the first,
second round. He went at the end of the second round
to
Tampa Bay.
Tampa Bay, yeah.
To be Tom Brady's backup.
Yeah.
It went him at the end of the second round. Then 2 picks later, I think it was Kellen Mond, and then Davis Mills went to the Texans. I think if any of those guys fell to the end of the 3rd round, they would have taken them. But at that spot, like when you're looking at again, their first 2 picks were picks of need, but also like, hey, we're building our team, we're making it better. Samuel Cosme, an athletic tackle, guy who's going to potentially contribute right away for left tackle for them. And again, I think that was a very good pick for them out of Texas. Again, an athletic tackle who may need to be coached up a little bit, but now you have a better offensive line room that I think is just going to be. Washington is going to be a better team, and they're getting again they got a better quarterback this year with Fitzpatrick.
Sorry, Alex Smith, we love you.
But like you need to have legs. And
no disrespect, Alex. We love you, and we want the best for you. But it was hard to watch you.
Happy retirement. That's what we're saying.
It wasn't hard to watch you. Every time you step back, I was like, I hope his leg doesn't fall off. Like,
yes.
It's like I hope no one hits him, and then his leg goes that way, and it's like it's blood on the field. We didn't want that for you, but we're glad that you're gonna enjoy retirement. Coach now, probably do some coaching.
Yes.
When you're chipped like that or something like that, we'll see. But that Taylor Heineke kid, man, he showed me something. He did.
I think he's going to compete in camp with Fitzpatrick to be the starter.
He showed me, I'm like, you went cold against the Bucs defense, and you showed out.
Yes.
You showed out pretty well. I'm like, all right, there's something that you have in your gut, that kid. So we'll see. We'll see what your future holds for them. I like the team. I like Ron Rivera. Even though he went through cancer and then, he was very silent as the head coach, but his personality infected that squad.
Oh, yeah, they got a lot better.
And they got a lot better. I didn't see them. You wouldn't see them winning the division, but, hey, they showed out with the one lack they had was a quarterback.
Here's the thing. I think his notoriety in the league gave him that ability to basically get the owner to kind of back off.
Yeah.
Like, if you noticed, Dan Snyder's not really like, even though he just bought out the rest of the owners and he's the full 100% owner of the team, he has not said a lot of things recently. He has been, I'm going to be in the background.
STFU.
Because Ron Rivera said so. Ron Rivera is now the guy running the team, and that's the idea here.
Yeah. Can we talk about the Dolphins?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes, they had a very good draft as well.
Wow. Getting Waddle for Tua, match made in heaven.
Yes, I like Waddle a lot. In fact,
so do I.
I think there was a very good argument for Waddle to be the number one wide receiver in this draft class.
It was just he had an injury. That's why it held him back.
If he had gotten to play this whole year, I think there would have been a lot of good argument for him to be the number one guy.
I think that Devontae Smith would never would have won the Heisman if Waddle would have played.
I think there's a good argument to that.
Yeah. Even I think Smith said it himself. He was interviewed on Club Shay with Shannon Sharp. Shout out to Shannon Sharp. If you pay attention, we love you. And he said it out of his mouth like, yo, if Waddle didn't get hurt, the light would have never been shown on me.
Yeah.
Because those two is a tandem. Can you imagine? I'm sorry to take it back. At one point, Jerry Jeudy, Ruggs, Waddle, Smith, all on the same field at the same time.
Wasn't the other guy who might be a first round wide receiver next year too? Starts with an M. I can't remember how to say his name.
So just think what Alabama had at one point. The same thing with the running back room at one point where they had. So
they had Derrick Henry, Alvin Kamara.
Oh my gosh, it was a lot of guys. Because even if you guys know Kamara,
Kenyon Drake was there too at one point.
Kamara had to transfer out to Tennessee because it's crowded in here.
Yeah,
and he showed out. It's a good thing for him. Yeah, but still, all that one, and even the quarterbacks.
Yes,
you had Jones, Tua, and you had Jalen Hurts. So wow,
the other Jalen.
Wow.
Jalen Waddle, I love. I like the speed.
Yeah,
I like the smoothness. There's a very good argument for him being the number one wide receiver in this class.
He should have been.
And like I get the argument for Jamar Chase there too. Again, if it wasn't for the injury concern, it wouldn't be it wouldn't be that big of a deal. Jalen Phillips, I liked a lot too. He had the concussion issues.
But that's a flyer. Would you count as a flyer?
He's still in the first round, so I don't know if that's a flyer. I think it's more along the lines of he is a player. I think he's a very good edge rusher.
Mm-hmm.
I think they had the ability to take that risk and just go with it.
Okay.
He is probably, if it wasn't for the concussion concerns, he would have went top 10.
Okay.
But because he had 3 concussions, one because of a dirt bike accident, he was He had to medically retire from UCLA, then go to Miami.
Ooh.
So yeah, that was why.
Ooh.
That's
why
teams.
Red flags over there, right
yes.
there. I don't know. I would, if just by you saying those couple things, I would never take him the first round.
Yeah, well, that was kind of my concern as well. I think there were teams who had him off their board. I probably would have as well because, for me, and I know the stats on this, the 5-year survival rate for a player in the NFL, if you don't have concussion history, right, just not having concussion history, 36%. When you do have a concussion history, it's 11%.
Yikes.
Yeah, so that is a big deal. That is a huge risk. That one-third shot of you 2/3 of a chance that your player is not going to work out for you.
Look at Luke Kuechly.
And of all the injuries to have as far as a risk goes,
it's a head trauma.
Yes, where it's not like you can play through it. You have an independent neurologist you have to go through to get to play. So that is the risk there with Jalen Phillips. He gets one concussion, he could be out for 3 months.
Did he go through the I guess the independent neurologist for the draft, or teams didn't look at him like that?
I don't know how they handled that. I honestly don't know how that was handled this year. I don't know how teams felt about those medical red flags.
That's a
Either way,
big risk. In the first round, you could have got somebody else.
Well, but here's the thing. Miami's the one team that could take that risk, right? Because they have multiple first-round picks. They had 2 first-round picks this year. They have 2 first-round picks in 2023. So I think they felt comfortable about it. Javon Holland, I kind of wasn't as big of a fan on Javon Holland. But I think he was a fine pick on day 2. I just think he was taken a little high. I think he was the first safety out the board. Maybe it was either him or the Atlanta pick. I think it was him because I think Atlanta picked like 2 picks later. So Javon Holland, I thought his better position is outside corner. He never played at outside corner, but he didn't play slot corner like you would want to see him play slot corner to feel good about him playing slot corner in the NFL. And like there's talk about him being a safety, but he didn't tackle or attack the way you want a safety to play.
Just stick his nose in there.
Yeah, like he didn't hit like a safety. Now maybe they feel better about his coverage on the back end.
So you think it might be like a free safety?
I think it might be well, I had Ricky on and he was talking about his usage and he's like, what you could see him maybe being is we thought the Patriots would be the perfect team to take him. Now you're getting Brian Flores taking him.
Well,
but
it's the Patriots way. Very
Patrick Chung-esque player who I think it has a very good versatility to him. My issue was there was 2 different times where I wanted to just kind of fuse 2 players in this draft class at safety. Javon Holland and Elijah Molden I wanted to take and turn them into one player because they would have been the perfect slot corner / safety, like a Budda Baker kind of player. And they both have different things that were really good. Like if you took Elijah Molden's mentality and put it in Javon Holland, you'd have Budda Baker. There was another thing where Andre Cisco, who went to the Jacksonville Jaguars, had a torn ACL out of Syracuse.
I remember him. I remember him. That guy. They talked about him. Yeah.
If you took him and you put Ardarius Washington's brain inside of his body, he would be a top 10 player in this draft class. Now, part of it was he was playing for Syracuse, and when he played near the line of scrimmage for Syracuse, he looked like a mess. But when he was playing free safety, when he was playing out, he was great. So I think he was playing a lot of times out of alignment. Where he would get burned sometimes because, again, I think their defense was a little bit of a mess.
The defense was trash. It was
with Syracuse.
No disrespect to Syracuse.
But there were 3 good players there that were draftable players.
I know.
So John Holland, I wasn't the biggest fan of, but I think he went, day 2, I thought he would go. And if you swapped him with Liam Eichenberg, I liked Eichenberg. I also like Hunter Long. Hunter Long reminds me a lot of Austin Hooper.
Oh, okay.
As far as a player, like a solid blocker, solid receiving option, not the biggest athlete in the world, but I think he will be a solid tight end at the next level. And then Liam Eichenberg, if it wasn't for the fact he had 32.5-inch arms, I think he would have been taken first round.
He has short arms.
Yeah, he did not have the best wingspan, best arm length or wingspan in this draft class.
And to be tackled, you want to have long arms to just knock him back. So I can see that, yeah.
Now, again, I think they're not as worried about it. I think they're going to see what he can do. Maybe they'll play him at left tackle. I thought they'd address tackle. They did take another tackle later on in the 7th round. But after Hunter Long, it was 2 7th-round picks, so I don't, might not even make the roster. I think those top 5 picks were all very good. Again, they have picks going into the future. I think the Jalen Phillips pick I felt a little worried about because of the concussion history, but there were people who wanted him to go top 10 even with the concussions. I feel a little bit more nerve-wracked about that. I don't know if I
wouldn't have taken him. No disrespect to you, kid. I would have grabbed you probably in the 2nd or 3rd round if you were there.
Yeah, well, and that's where I felt was fair, and that's why I thought Miami having 4 picks in the top 50, I thought that made it a very likely option that they would take him. And then they did. So I think that worked out for them. You have what do you want to do? One or two more final draft classes?
I think the steal for me was you Falcons, man. You got the tight end that you wanted, man.
Kyle Pitts.
Listen,
I liked
that
Kyle
tape
Pitts.
on him. You're looking at Shannon Sharp all over again. No disrespect. I compare him to Shannon Sharp of that pass catching tight end where you can't guard him.
He's great. Listen, he's one of the best players. He was one of the best players in this draft class at all. Like,
yeah,
he was
him and Penny Sewell
and Jalen Waddle and Jamar Chase. Like, I think there was an
4
argument for like the top 3 receivers, the top 2 tackles, and Kyle Pitts.
But
as
Kyle
the non-QB
Pitts,
options.
Wow.
I mean, he literally could be played at wide receiver, except for the fact that he's so good at tight end, you could play him at tight end.
Yeah.
This is why I did the video recently talking about the Julio Jones thing, and I think that them taking Kyle Pitts frees them up to do that because they still have Calvin Ridley on the roster. Now, I would love to see an offense with Kyle Pitts, Calvin Ridley, and Julio Jones.
Woo-hoo!
Like, I would rather see that because I think that just gives you all the options.
Woo-hoo!
But and they didn't take a wide receiver in this draft class until the 6th round, so that might still be an option for them.
Mm-hmm.
They did take Richie Grant in round 2, more of a single high free safety type.
Well, they lost their safety, so
yeah, and I think he's going to be a better version of what Keanu Neal and he's not. Keanu Neal was more of a strong safety kind of guy, but they also had the Devontae Casey, who both those guys were coming off of injuries anyway. Richie Grant though reminds me of Marcus May and Marcus Williams.
Yes.
Very good, like versatile free safety kind of guy. A little bit older of a prospect, 24 years old, but can drop down in the slot. Can go ahead. Maybe if you're really in a pinch, play corner for you like Marcus May did. So again, I think he's a very solid safety option. Then they also took Jalen Mayfield in the 3rd round. I think that's a solid option. I think they might kick him into guard, or they might let him play right tackle if Caleb McGarry doesn't work out. But now they have options on the offensive line. There's Drew Dahlman out of Stanford. I kind of like that pickup. But, again, they got another offensive lineman to see, if one player doesn't work. I think they took a center last year in the 3rd round, but now maybe you have a backup center. They did lose Alex Max. They lost the guy who's been their center for the last few years.
He was like it was like a stone in there. Is he one that played with what was it? Was it knee jacked up in Super Bowl?
Yes.
Yeah. What was wrong with him in the Super Bowl? I forgot what it was.
I forget. I think it was.
I know it was like
I think he had like a fracture.
And he played pretty damn well, close to perfect.
Yeah. So again, I really like their draft class. They Darren Hall out of San Diego State and Avery Williams. Again, trying to take some later picks on corner. They do have a couple of guys already at corner on the roster. I thought they'd attack corner sooner, but maybe they didn't feel like there was a good enough man corner at the spots that they were looking at.
Who did they draft in the 1st round last year?
Trayvon Mullen out of Clemson. So
how did that go?
Not bad. So I think they'll be. I think they're going to be fine with him. I think it's the other corner slot that I think I'm a little bit more worried about. Depending on what happens with the Julio Jones thing, maybe they go ahead and get rid of Julio. They trade him out, maybe bring in a guy like Brian Poole when they have a little bit more money, making Julio a post-June 1st trade.
Listen, because Calvin Ridley's a stud.
Yes, they're going to keep Calvin Ridley. I think they'll extend Calvin Ridley.
He's a stud. You Atlanta, don't worry. Calvin Ridley can hold the fort for Julio.
Yeah.
We're not saying Julio is bad. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying we don't care about Julio Jones, but if you let go Julio, Calvin Ridley's right there, so he can easily put him in there and do his thing.
The other thing is they might not get rid of Julio. Like, we're hearing a lot of talk about Julio. There might be other players that they're looking to trade. I wouldn't be shocked if they traded the safety linebacker dude that they have there. Is it Deontay Bush?
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't be shocked if they trade Grady Jarrett because they didn't do anything with his contract to kind of free up money with him.
Mm.
So there's a lot of guys on that roster that come June 1st they might trade them.
That Julio Jones situation is starting to hurt my ears because I'm telling you, I'm seeing the hoodie coming over and finessing Atlanta out to Julio Jones. It wouldn't surprise me.
We'll see. We will see.
The dark side.
I think they might. I think they'll see how their season's going too. I think they're going to see what they can get out of the guys they have on the roster. But there is a lot of talk that they need to kind of get rid of a couple of contracts in order to sign their rookies that are going to be coming in off this draft class. Any final classes you really wanted to talk about?
Any final teams? Okay, so here's the one that kind of confused me. You Cowboys and you Eagles.
Cowboys and Eagles trading with each other?
No, I'm not helping you out. Are you kidding me? No. I'm not giving you – because I'm telling you right now, if Devontae Smith comes back to haunt the Dallas Cowboys, you did it to yourself.
I mean, yes, but keep in mind, he was either going to the Giants or the Eagles.
True, but I'm not.
So they just got an extra third-round pick. Regardless, he was going to be in the division.
All
you did was get a third-round pick to help screw the Giants and give the Eagles a guy. Keep in mind, the Eagles don't have a quarterback. In fact, I think it would have been a worse situation if the Eagles had traded up and gotten Justin Fields. So, like, if anything, I think they both screwed the pooch on that because they could have taken Justin Fields.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. That one is like, what? Because when I saw on the ticker, I'm like, Eagles trade with the Cowboys. What are you talking about? And I thought it was a mistake.
Yeah.
And then it was like, no, they actually traded with the Cowboys. I'm like, what the hell what did he have to do to get that deal off? And then you found it was a swap of the first and the third, right, for that pick?
Yeah, they just swapped. They traded a third-round pick to move up. That was, my big thing with their draft class with the Dallas Cowboys, it's all dudes have had off-the-field question marks.
Yes, and shout out to Undisputed, because your boy Skip Bayless, he went on an epic rant I'd never seen before. Usually Skip is so optimistic about his squad. He was really like, no. He didn't like any of them, except for Michael Parsons, but he's like,
but even he has an off-the-field thing going on.
These feel like the Rebels. It's kind of like, the Raiders all over again. But these, troubled guys coming in and like...
Yeah. Micah Parsons had the off-the-field when he was in college where they were doing the hazing thing. Kelvin Joseph literally got suspended for a bowl game while he was at LSU and then had to transfer to Kentucky, and then they basically asked him to opt out because they were tired of him lollygagging at the end of the year, kind of being half in, half out.
You see?
Osa Odigizua and Chauncey Golson, those were, I think, like the cool picks. Like, they didn't have any off the field. But I also don't think they were kind of more floor guys. Like, they're going to come in. They might be rotational edge rushers for you.
Mm-hmm.
Osa can also play D-tackle 3 technique for you. They didn't get a nose tackle in this draft class. I mean, I don't know if Bohannon – I actually don't know what Bohannon's measurables on that.
Because we were so sold – I'm sorry. We were so sold on Patrick Surtain, and when he got off the board, it was like, all right, screw it.
They had to trade back because they were a little nervous. Nash and Wright might have been a little bit of a stretch of a pick. Jabril Cox was a good pick, but now you're taking 2 linebackers. Josh Ball, he had a huge off-the-field thing go on recently.
Talk about it.
What was it, like 10 complaints or something? It was weird. I don't have enough information for me to feel comfortable opining on his off the field, other than it's like 10 complaints and there's like I think it's like a domestic thing. It is not a very nice thing.
Wait, there's another player who had a domestic issue.
Oh,
recently.
Rashad Weaver on the Titans.
Yeah,
yes.
I was like, woo.
Yes, and
already.
Yes, literally like this month.
Yeah.
It was weird.
It was like, come on, you didn't do your homework?
Well, apparently, like, it was filed literally last week. Like, the criminal complaint was filed last week, literally the day of the draft or something. Yeah. So it was like, that's so bad. And Titans have not had good luck with that kind of stuff either.
No, because even the same kid from last year,
Isaiah Wilson.
They don't know is he still on the squad or they traded him?
No, he's a free agent now. They traded him to Miami, and Miami waived him. They're like, we're not dealing with this guy. This is nuts.
So because he doesn't know if he wants to play or not.
Yeah, so
sorry to scramble you guys.
Browns actually signed a guy who was kind of like that with Malik McDowell recently. Former second-round pick of the Seahawks, has not played a snap in the NFL because he got into an ATV accident and then he got arrested multiple times, went to jail for a little bit. So
some of those guys need your boys' help, man. Come talk to me. I'll get you right.
Right? You guys need like one of those. You need a mentor.
Guy, you need to mentor you. You know what I'm saying?
Is that your next thing?
Yeah.
DJ Intence, spiritual guide.
That's it, man. I'll help you out, man. Let me get in your head because I would tear you down and build you right back up. I don't care how mad you might get at me, but you know what? Why that should be is facts. Because you're effing around. Stop. But yeah, but going back to that pick spot, it was weird. Cause I'm like, because if you can go to the Eagles, if you want to see the Eagles one,
yeah,
it's like.
They had some very good picks though. So think about if the Eagles went ahead and didn't well, here's the thing. We don't know what would have happened if the Eagles didn't trade up to 10, because maybe the Giants still trade back from 11, maybe not. If maybe the Eagles get the call from the Bears to go ahead and swap picks and get a first rounder. So at the end of the day, I don't think it really changes much, other than Dallas got a third rounder for taking a guy they probably would have taken at 10. So I don't know. I don't mind it that much. Eagles got their guy in it. They still screwed out the Giants. So I think for those teams, it's all kind of the same.
They're going to beat each other up regardless.
I also like what the Eagles did. Like, I like Devontae Smith as a player.
Yeah, who doesn't?
I like Landon Dickerson. I think he was one of my favorite offensive linemen to watch in this draft class. Now, he has injury concerns, so that's going to be a big red flag. Well, but that was why he fell to the second round.
He was the center that came and had the last snap because he was injured. So with his knee, right?
Yeah, he has multiple knee problems over the years, but yes, mostly ACLs.
He played pretty well when he was on the field because he was a guy you could put at center, guard.
Yeah, he's very versatile.
Tackle, if you needed him, he would go anywhere. So I liked him. That might be the replacement for your boy Kelsey. We don't know yet.
I think that's what he's there for. I think he's going to be able to not play right away, let him rehab a bit, play Jason Kelsey his final year. And they get Landon Dickerson in the room. If they have to, they could play him at left guard as well, or right guard. If Brandon Brooks isn't back.
But Devontae Smith, I was like, no. I'm sorry. I'm like, that's like your worst nightmare. You had the guy in that spot. You gave him up, and he's going to come back to haunt you.
But here's the thing. Dallas wasn't taking him. And I said before.
Dallas wasn't taking him, but it's still like, I'd rather have traded somebody else.
But again, if that's the call that you have on the board and you're getting the most amount for that pick, like, I get it. I get both sides of it. You get an extra third rounder that helped you go ahead and build out your roster a little bit. Landon Dickerson, Milton Williams is very athletic D tackle. The reason why they drafted Milton Williams is they traded back 2 picks for an extra 6th rounder, and apparently it cost them Alim McNeil, who went to the Lions. Lions also had a really good draft too.
Yeah, Penny Sewell went over there.
Penny Sewell, Levi Muzariki, Alim McNeil, Amon St. Brown, Efetu Melifonwu. Their like top 5 picks are all good players. I really like their draft.
With the Penny Sewell, don't be surprised if he becomes, HOF. Maybe.
Yeah, their offensive line is going to be jacked, man, because you got Penny Sewell playing right tackle, Taylor Decker playing left tackle. You have Frank Ragnow playing center. You can kick Halapuli Woody Vaitai. I don't know how to say his name at all. I know Avita Vaitai with vitamin water. You can play him at center, or not center. I play him at right guard, and dude, their offensive line is going to be really good.
Yeah.
So I dig their offensive line right now. Again, their defense, I think they got a lot better. They basically drafted back-to-back picks D tackles with the Lions with Levi Muzariki and Alim McNeil, and they have one guy who could be the nose tackle who can get a little bit of push at the nose, who's kind of like a discount Vita Vea. And Levi Muzariki he's a guy who if he's just gonna be gap shooting, he's gonna be really good. If he's just getting lined up on one guy and pushing in, he's going to be fine. I think he's going to be a great player for them. And then Efetu Melifonwu, now you're getting another athletic, big outside corner to go along with Amani Aurier and the guy who they drafted in the top 5 last year, the corner. So again, they have plenty of corners now. I actually am a little shocked. I think they kind of needed safety help, but they didn't really address that. So maybe that's the thing that they look at in free agency still. Maybe they call Trey Boston or something.
We'll see.
He's always available.
We'll see.
And he's always relatively pretty
solid.
Speaking
about the Lions, how are they going to address the running back situation?
Well, they just released Kerryon Johnson.
That was what to ask you.
Well, they drafted a running back like 2nd round last year. What's his name? The kid out of DeAndre Swift.
Yeah.
Yeah, out of Georgia. Over. So, and they can run him out of the slot. He's very versatile. I'm shocked they got rid of Kerryon Johnson because it's a relatively cheap contract anyway. It wasn't like they had to get rid of him.
Maybe he's wanted to go.
Yeah, maybe they were looking to add new guys to the roster. I'm curious to see if he actually gets waived or if somebody offers him a pick for the player at this point. Because again, if I'm a team that's maybe looking for a solid backup running back,
there you go.
Now you can go ahead and bring him on your team. He's not going to cost you much. If I'm the Giants, maybe I look at him because again, you don't know what the issue is going to be with Saquon Barkley. The Jets could take him, but they also took Michael Carter. But again, he might be a guy who might be very good for your scheme fit. I think the Eagles had a very good draft. I think the Lions had a very good draft. Like I said, the top 5 picks for the Lions I really liked. All the way down to Amon-Ra St. Brown, who kind of reminds me a bit of Juju Smith-Schuster. Another USC guy. Plays big, plays like a big slot role. Maybe he isn't actually that big, but he plays big in the slot. Wasn't great on the outside, but they don't need him to play on the outside. It kind of also reminds me a bit of Cooper Kupp. So again, a guy who they could kind of move around.
Who doesn't like Cooper Kupp?
What?
Who doesn't like Cooper Kupp?
Well, exactly. Like you're getting a guy who kind of has that similar mold to Cooper Kupp, where big slot kind of guy. You can move him around the line of scrimmage. He's going to be kind of more of a run after catch guy, a really athletic kind of dude. Like I said, big slot kind of player, as opposed to like Amari Rodgers, who went to the Green Bay Packers.
Can we end on that one?
The Packers? Okay,
yes.
Yeah, we'll end on the Packers. First round, they took Eric Stokes, who I actually don't mind as a first round pick.
I think for the Packers, it's like it's a love-hate thing.
Yeah,
because I like what they did for the team, but you still have a guy who's disgruntled, and you're not helping your cause.
Well, not only that. So when you look at their roster, there's no receiver who's scheduled to be on the roster after next year.
You see what I'm talking about? You see what I'm talking about? You see what I'm just talking about just now?
But I think I didn't mind the Stokes pick if they found a way to resolve the rest of the roster. Now, Josh Myers, I think he was a little bit of an overdraft out of Ohio State. But a solid center, a solid center prospect. I just thought, at that spot, I might have preferred like Quentin Miners, Wyatt Davis. They're gonna probably kick Elton Jenkins out to right tackle now, or play, and then they'll play what's his name, Earl. I think Billy Turner. Billy Turner will play him at either left tackle or guard for the time being. So I guess I understood the pick because they did need to correct their center situation. I like Amari Rodgers as a player, but he can't be the only guy scheduled to be on your roster past next year. I'll tell you that much. I probably would have went knowing that, hey, we need to go ahead and build up around Aaron. I probably would have went Elijah Moore earlier.
Yeah.
Get a guy. There. He was there. He has good run after catch ability. Kind of has a very similar, role. Could have a similar role to, like I said before, about Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk.
Yeah.
Guys who, again, are in the Shanahan offense. They, I think you've seen those kind of guys get utilized like that. Not like they can't do it with Amari Rodgers, but it's a different level of speed with him. So
because the Packers really didn't have that slot speedy guy.
No, they had MVS, but I don't think MVS is going to be the guy. He's a role player.
I'm not disrespecting him when I'm saying that. I'm just saying he wasn't like, he's not your little smart and gone. No, he's not that guy. So you didn't help the main guy who got the MVP for you last year.
Nah, so I get why I would be a little annoyed, especially if you were looking at other players. Terrence Marshall was there as well, I think around the pick 62 point. They could have gotten him, Terrence Marshall Jr., who the Carolina Panthers took. Panthers as well had a great draft.
Yes, they did.
So
I'm excited to see what Sam Darnold actually going to do down there. To be
yes,
honest. He's finally going to have something to work with.
I don't know how much I buy about the Aaron Rodgers situation. It's starting to sound like it's a lot of people near the team saying things, and I don't know who to buy about any of it. So I'm going to wait to make an opinion on it when it actually happens, if a trade happens.
Or if he says, F you, I'm taking a couple of years off.
Or if he goes on Pat McAfee's show and tells everybody what's actually going on, because he's...
He's been very silent. He hasn't said anything.
Yeah, like...
He's been talking on his behalf.
Yeah, so the only people I really respect when it comes to the Aaron Rodgers stuff is Pat McAfee and A.J. McCarron, because those guys actually know him. Not A.J. McCarron, A.J. Hawk. Because those guys actually know him and hang out with him. So when they say something about it, I will listen. Other than that, I don't really care what people who are beat writers are saying about it. Yeah, outside of that, like I don't. There's nothing stellar about their draft. There's nobody who I was really a big fan of outside the top.
They addressed the team needs, but it wasn't like, okay,
Yeah, there's again nobody who I was really overly excited. No late round steals or
No.
anything. The last one I think I want to talk about quickly because I mentioned them, Carolina Panthers.
Whew. Talk about filling out the roster.
Yeah, so Terrence Marshall went 2 picks before them, so maybe they could have traded up and got Terrence Marshall Jr. if they were worried about a guy falling. But again, Carolina Panthers took J.C. Horn in the first round, 8 overall.
Like him.
Love him, one of my favorite players.
Because he's not scared to go against number one in the travel.
Yeah,
That's the one thing I liked about him more than I like Patrick Surtain. Like, to me, Patrick Surtain is that solid guy you leave there, but J.C. Horn's a guy like, all right, that's your number one. I'm going him.
yeah, and he's going to press you
He's
in
gonna
the slot,
he's gonna stick his hand in there,
outside.
he's going to do what he has to do.
So, yeah, I like J.C. Horn a lot. One of my favorite players in this draft
Very much
class,
so.
and one of the first guys I watched in this draft class, and I fell in love right away. Terrence Marshall was not a guy who I was a huge fan of, but at pick 59, I thought it was a very good pickup for them. He gets to rejoin with his offensive coordinator.
There you go.
From college with Joe Brady. Brady Christensen I liked quite a bit. I think a lot of people started pushing him up their boards later on. I think third round is the exact place he should have went. I thought he was a third round tackle, and he went in the third round, and that was probably the perfect spot for him. I thought he could play guard. They might kick him into guard depending on who wins their tackle battle, but they could also play him at tackle and play somebody else at guard. They think they brought in Pat Elflein and Cam Irving, so they're going to have a fight down there.
You know what I'm saying? And you get to where you get to, and then that's it.
Yeah, and I also like the Tommy Tremble pick. Chuba Hubbard I liked quite a bit, again, as a fourth-round running back to be the backup to Christian McCaffrey. Davion Nixon I dig. I think there was a lot of talk about, initially him being a top 50 player. I think this is more, this is definitely closer to where he probably should have went. A good 3-tech player for him to put next to, Deontay Brown and a lot of the other guys they already have on the roster. Different kind of player than what they already have. More of a gap shooter. But again, a bigger one and a bigger 3-tech. He just didn't do it great against big competition, so I guess that's kind of why a lot of teams weren't as huge on him. Deontay Brown out of Alabama. They also got, as a UDFA, David Moore out of Grambling State, who I think was actually their biggest steal of the draft because they got him as a UDFA. So between Deontay Brown...
Undrafted free agent.
Yes, undrafted free agent. Between those two guys... I think the guard situation is going to be really good because I kind of like Deontay Brown from Alabama. Big dude. I wanted him and Ben Cleveland to go to the Jets, so the Jets could have the biggest offensive line in the NFL because they'd have like 3 guys who measured in over 350. Like it would be the biggest O-line ever. And then you look at Moore from Grambling State, and he's actually 6'2", but very stout and very stacked. I think he'd be very good at guard. And then Shai Smith, I thought, was a solid slot pickup. I think you look through that whole list. I think it was a great pickup. Tommy Tremble, solid blocking tight end who might be able to do more than what he did in college. I think his best tape's ahead of him. Overall, just love that draft class.
Tremble was a guy on the tape. It didn't look. He does dirty work.
Yeah.
So that's why you said that I liked him too because he was a guy that. So I'm gonna go punch you in the face and block you and take you out off the field, and he did it.
Like, if there's a Jonnu Smith in this class, the initial people were talking about Brevin Jordan as Jonnu Smith Jr. I think Tommy Tremble kind of could be in that mold of a Jonnu Smith or even just kind of a hidden gem that you get later on in the role of George Kittle, where he played the other parts well, and from the little parts that you saw him catching, he played really well. So any final thoughts on this class as a whole?
I think this draft class as a whole was one of the best because you basically had 2 years worth of like tape from last year and this year. So you had a lot of players that should have been higher, but they fell in later rounds. It was okay.
There were guys who went straight undrafted who I thought were going to go like rounds 3 and 4. Like the talent in the UDFA, the undrafted market was insane.
It was high. It was really high.
Browns got Marvin Wilson as a free agent. If they had taken him anytime on day 3, I would have been happy.
Yeah.
Ardarius Washington went to the Baltimore Ravens. If he had gone anywhere on day 3,
pick up the Ravens about the first round pick. The wide receiver, but another time. Yeah,
another time. There's plenty of there's so much, and I'm sure we'll get back to talking about. Even just going into the season, just all these draft classes. So, again, it was a fun draft. I think it was a draft of very diverse opinions. Deep. Yes, it was very deep at weird positions. Like, it was deep, and then there was, like, not a consensus opinion on certain players. So, Overall, I liked it. It was a fun year. I'm glad to have you back on.
Thank you.
To get you back in here.
I haven't been avoiding him. It's just I've been working and trying to make ends meet.
He's been working and I've been avoiding him for some weird reason. I don't know why. No, he's been working and then just things have to line up perfectly.
Exactly.
But it was great to get him back in here to hear a bit about what his opinions were on this draft class. To go over some of our favorites on here, our top whatever 8, 9, 10, and some of the lesser favorites as well. But again, thanks for coming on. If you want, you can follow him at
DJ Intence and the podcast On the Record, which I'll get him on to talk on our show about law stuff and sports stuff too as well. He's always invited.
Oh, so that sounds like a fun time. I'll definitely hop on there.
Yeah.
And then you can follow me at BROJO. Death is in the end of life. Punch like a delicious drink you drink in the summer. You can follow the podcast at Draftvice on Twitter, at Draftvice_football on Instagram. And take care. Fall out. I'm not doing any more midnight mock drafts because there's nothing to mock draft anymore. But I will find something else to live stream sometime soon.
Fantasy's coming pretty soon.
Yes, that'll be the next
dynasty
thing.
picks if you had any dynasty picks coming up.
Yeah, that'll be the next thing when those things come up. Dynasty but I got to break down tape for some of those guys. When I do my rankings for fantasy, it start out looking at who did well last year, look at tape for guys who might take the step forward, look at guys who maybe didn't do as well and why didn't they do as well and what might have changed. So it'll be a process, and I'm excited. We have a few months, some new projects in the pipeline, and also check out Thursdays at 6:00 me on Face Off with Facemeyer with Brenda Facemeyer. That's always fun. She's great. She's very supportive, and she keeps on wanting to push me on doing extra shows with her as well. So, go ahead, watch that. Go watch all of her things. I'll put the link to her groups in the profile. She has more than just that show as well. So, have a good night.
2 things before I go. Oh. Hey, Texans.
When I woke up this morning,
that was 2 things?
Dangerous.